Hey everybody, it's Diecast Rhino. I don't have any cars to show you today, so I thought maybe what we would do is have a discussion today about diecast car grading. As collectors, at some point we're all going to end up going online to a website like eBay or Mercari or something like that, and we're going to try to find some cars that we really need in our collection, but we can't necessarily just go down to our local Walmart or Target and pull them off the pegs. So one thing that always catches my eye when I'm searching through eBay, for example, looking for some older Matchbox or Hot Wheels cars, is a seller that will attach a grade to their car in their description. And yes, I'm putting grades in quotes for reasons that we'll see in just a few minutes. So first, let's just talk about grading in general, like why it's important. You have to have some sort of scale or a system in place in order to assign a value to anything that's collectible. When I was in junior high school and maybe a little bit into high school, I was really into collecting baseball cards. So going back to the age of 12 or 13, I'm already familiar with a general grading scale and how things work like that. Mint, ex-mint, near mint, very good, all that kind of stuff. Some of those exact same systems are still in place today, with one exception. In my opinion, those scales and systems of grading are much more rigorous today than they were back then. Back in the 1980s, there were tons of baseball cards that we would have called mint, that if you look at them today and had someone try to grade them today, they might not end up being anywhere close to mint. With new technologies available now to actually do the grading, with more limited production runs of collectible items, and with more complex offerings available to us as collectors, it becomes more important now than ever that we have a solid system in place so that we can assign a fair market value to these items. So how do we do that with Hot Wheels cars? How do we take something like this, look it over with a fine-tooth comb, and then come up with some sort of value for it? I'm glad you asked. If you just go online and do a quick Google search of diecast grading or Hot Wheels grading, you're going to come up with several very useful websites. And we're going to take a look at a few of those right now. The first site we'll look at is the North Carolina Hot Wheels Association. Its price guide section is a little out of date and looks like the site is not kept up much anymore. However, their grading scale that they use is still applicable. And you'll see some other websites referencing this exact same scale. What I really like at the top is how they introduce the system, because it's really almost an exact recreation of my thoughts when I decided to do this video. Right up here at the very beginning. I can't tell you how many eBay auctions for redlines that I've seen where the seller was claiming the car was mint or near mint when it was painfully obvious that it wasn't. Yes, that right there is exactly what made me want to do a video on this. Now, obviously, I can't read a seller's mind, but I don't think that most of these guys are trying to scam anybody or rip anybody off. My theory is, well, pretty much the same thing that he's got written here. That they might see a decent car and consider it to be in pretty good shape for 40 years old, so it must be near mint. Problem is, it doesn't work that way. Yes, that is exactly what I'm thinking. You see, a grading system doesn't take the age of the item into consideration. Something is either mint or it's not. You can't say, well, this car is mint for its age. No. And finally, remember this. The truth of the matter is, a true mint redline is going to be pretty rare. Yes, it is, and it's very important to remember that. Now let's look at this grading system and what it actually says. You can see that we've got some points assigned on the left side of this column with the flaw listed over here on the right. 1 point for small, barely noticeable scratch or chip. 1 point for slight wear on a decal. 1 point for a slightly tarnished base. Minor wear on wheel chrome. 1 point for each wheel. So 4 wheels, if you have a little bit of wear, that's going to be 4 points deducted right there. Scroll on down. Oh yeah, look at this right here. Parts missing is 50 points, okay? 50 points for something that's missing. Keep that in mind. We're going to see where that comes into play a little later. Total points down here. If you have 0 points to deduct, you get a C10 rating, and that's 100% of mint value. If you just take off 1 point, it's a C9, and then 85% of mint value. So Let's say you have a red custom Corvette that you're looking at buying, and you see a little wear on the wheel chrome on all 4 wheels. Well, that's 4 points right there. Let's say there's some slight tarnish on the base, and there almost always is. That's another point. Then maybe there are 2 very small but noticeable chips or scratches. That's another 2 points. Other than that, the paint is excellent, no toning, no pitting, the windshield is perfect, no scratches, the wheels are perfectly straight, all the paint is perfect on the rear tail lights. Well, guess what? That car's still going to grade a C7. 6 points means a C7. C7 means you should only be paying around 65% of mint value for that car. So, a very common custom Corvette, redline custom Corvette, and in mint condition, it's worth, let's say, $250. Well, if it grades out like this and it's a C7, 65% of $250, you should only be looking to pay between $160 and $165 for that car. See how it works? Let's take a look at another site that uses a different type of grading scale. Let's hop on over here to redlineguide.com and see what they have to say. Here, they're going to start out with a simple 10-point grading system. 10 is gem mint, 9.5 is mint, and so on down the line. Also, right out beside each score, you'll see a list of the possible defects that might affect the score and give it what you get here, 8, 8.5, all the way down to 1. Basically, car exists. Cute. Down here below this grading system, there's actually some points that this individual makes about these factors, and he has these on here for red lines, but it's not just for red lines, it's for any car. And what I want to bring your attention to is this first one right here. Just because it is still in the package does not automatically mean the car is mint. That is so true. A car can be straight off the assembly line at the Mattel factory, not even made it into the packaging yet, and still not be mint. How? Well, it's very easy. Factory defects, errors, imperfections, we've all seen them. I can't tell you how many cars I've taken straight out of a blister over to the light box to be photographed, and once I get it under the light, I see that the windshield is all scratched up. There are misaligned decals, painting mistakes, bases that are incorrectly installed, so on and so on. I even had a brand new car that had a big fingerprint right in the paint. Those things make a car less than mint. Let's look at another website for grading. Here's one that lists both of the grading methods that we've talked about so far. He's got the, what I will call the sports card system right up here with the 10, the 9.5, 9, so on. And then down below that, we have that C scale that we saw on the first website, utilizing both of these grading systems at the same time. Also down here, he does mention that this C scale is what they use for the Tom Hertz price guides. Next, here's another buyer of diecast cars that lists out his method of grading so that you can tell how he gets to his conclusions. So he's using the sports card system. He's got his ratings here and how he does it, what sort of flaws might bring about a particular score. One of the things I really like about this site here is this right next to mint. You will not see a straight out mint listing on any of my cars. Mint condition implies perfection, and no old toy cars, even in the package, are perfect. I simply do not use mint as a rating. That is awesome that he puts that on here. And what he's doing here is he's reiterating the point that we talked about earlier, that a mint car, especially a red line car, is extremely rare. He's also emphasizing the fact that even if it's still in the package, that means it may not be perfect. So now that we've taken a look at how the grading can and should be applied to these cars, let's take a look at some cars for sale whose owners have added a grade to their descriptions. I've taken care to make sure that the seller IDs and the auction numbers do not appear in these screenshots. First up, let's look at this Redline Alive 55. The owner has stated that this car is near mint, so let's see what we think about that. My very first impression looking at this car before we even get to grading is just clean it up. If you really want to sell it, clean it before you take photos of it. This car looks like you could just take a Q-tip and go over it and make it look 10 times better before you try and sell it. Okay, Another quick note that I want to point out here, when you go and look at these auctions, you're almost always going to see something just like this. A little disclaimer that people put on here. You're almost always going to see something that basically just says, hey dude, look at all the photos and decide for yourself on the condition. This is a smart move, obviously, as grading can be subjective. I think everyone's doing it just to cover themselves. So getting back to this car, if we want to look at the wheels, you see that they've got quite a bit of fading on that chrome. That chrome is pretty dark. Looks like already we can see a few paint chips on this car. If we turn it around and look at the other side, same thing with the wheels again. Pretty dark on that chrome. Paint chips on the back. Paint chips here. And if we look at the base, wow, the base is heavily scratched up. This car has obviously been played with quite a bit. Look at the wheel up here. There's some kind of big scrape on that wheel. Looks like it goes all the way around. This car is obviously not near mint. You can't call this near mint. Sorry. Next, we're going to look at this Lincoln Continental Gold Mint Original. So he's claiming that this car is mint. He doesn't even say near mint. He goes right for the big boy, says it's mint condition. Let's take a look at it. And here's his description. Again, gold mint original. No disclaimer, by the way. Wow. I don't know what to say. This car is clearly not mint. So many pits and scratches on this paint. This is unbelievable. Engine looks okay. The base actually looks pretty good. Base looks very good. But then there's this. All of the paint. The paint is just beat up all over the car. Bigger chips at some of the corners. I mean, the wheels don't look that bad from what we can see, but good grief. Yeah, it's a shame that the body is so bad on this one because the base is really nice. The wheels aren't too bad, but come on, there's no way this car is mint. So next, what about this 1970 Hong Kong heavy Chevy, light brown interior? Near mint gorgeous. Here's his description. Again, near mint gorgeous. And here's the first picture that we're going to look at. And right away, what do we notice? Well, a lot of paint missing on this car. A lot of paint missing right here on the top in a very noticeable area. That's not good. It's on a part of the car that really stands out too. As we turn the car a little bit, see some discoloration on the wheels there and that chrome. The red line portion looks good. I think we can see it from the side really well. Looks like there's a big ding in this wheel, the rear wheel. More paint chips. Look at that spoiler. A lot of paint chips around that area. All around the passenger side window here and the door. Looking at the back of the car, where's the rest of the paint that's supposed to go on these taillights? I don't know. It's gone. And then back around here, we see some damage to that decal as well. And still the chrome not in perfect shape on the wheels. Around this driver's side door as well. Just tons of paint missing, paint discoloration, paint chips, whatever you want to call it. And there's another view of the top. There's the base, not too bad on the base. The wheel faces look pretty good. And when I say the wheel faces, I'm talking about the part of the wheel that if it was a real tire, it would be the surface where the tread actually is. So yeah, just really cannot understand how anyone would think this car is near mint condition. This is another fail. And now we move on to this lowdown that the seller claims to be near mint. Same thing in the description. There's your disclaimer. User provided photos to determine your own opinion. Feel free to contact me with questions. Okay, that's fair enough. But right away from the very first photo, I think we see that near mint condition grade is on thin ice. Yep, we can see paint chips, bare metal, all along these edges where wear usually occurs, whether it's play wear or storage wear. Here we see the front end of the car, paint chips everywhere. More of the same here. Again, along these edges, that's where you get a lot of the wear. And really, we don't even need to look through all of these photos. It's pretty obvious that you should be paying for a near mint car if you want to buy this one. Okay, next up, this seller wants $1,000 for this Porsche 917 that he claims to be near mint. And at first glance, it looks pretty good. Here's his description page. See the photos, judge for yourself. The wheels, looking pretty good right now. Paint, overall looking pretty good. I do see a chip or two. I do see a little bit of bare metal. As we turn the car here, again, wheels look okay. That's some fading or darkening. There's some darkening of that chrome on the wheels. Another couple of paint chips here. You know, it only takes one or two to make the car not mint, and then you add another one or two, then it's not even near mint. Looking at it from the front here, we've got even more paint chips. It actually looks like the car overall has a really rough paint job from the factory, not a bad paint job. It just looks rough and not very smooth. Base looks very good. I like the base. The base looks very good. The wheel surfaces, they look good. Overall, this car is a really great example of a redline Porsche 917. It's a car that anyone would be proud to have in their collection. The problem is it's just not near mint. Next car we're going to look at, Hot Wheels Redline 1968 Silhouette. Near mint to mint. The seller's feeling pretty good about what this car looks like. Let's see if he or she is right. Looking at their description page, they go through an actual breakdown of how they come up with this grade, which I think is pretty cool. They're very honest about this car, so let's take a close look at it. Well, the first thing that stands out to me on this car is the windows. Look at how they look almost polished. There's not a scratch on them anywhere. The paint on this car looks outstanding. The wheels look pretty good. There might be a little bit of darkening on that chrome, but it's not even on all the wheels, so that's good. Just a top view of the car. Wow, the paint and the glass just look phenomenal. There's the base. The base is outstanding. There's a good view of the car. I'm going back to the glass again. The glass overall is so good it might make up for one or two other flaws on this car. I don't know. Wow, this is a really good one. I think this grade could be right on the money. I think if anyone bought this car for the $95 that they're asking, I think they got a great deal. Next up, a Redline Custom Corvette. One of the cars I'd like to own. Description, this is by the same seller that we just looked at, so he's got the same thing here. He's got a clear explanation of how he came up with his grade. Right away, however, on this very first picture, we can see a little bit of paint wear. Right on this front fender, you see a spot where we got a little bit of bare metal there. The wheels look really good on this one. Top view of the car, all that paint looks really nice. I don't see any big scratches. I don't see any big paint chips missing. Again, just that one little small area on the front fender. Everything else looks pretty good. Again, wheels outstanding. Looks like from this view that they're missing a little bit of paint. You know, on these Redline Corvettes, the rear portion there that's part of the base, those tail lights should be painted in all the way. Other side looks really good. Again, great wheels. This is a really good looking car. Base looks excellent. Overall, if I had $235 to spend on this Corvette, I would have snatched it up immediately. But if we're going to go strictly by the grading system, I don't think it's going to pass for near mint. This car is a really good example, though, of how the system can be very subjective. I would call this car near mint, even though it would probably have enough deductions to grade below that. Okay, next up, this is an easy one, guys. We have a Volkswagen Beetle here listed as mint. That's right, mint. And take a look at what's buried here in the description, missing glass. It's missing the glass pieces. Remember earlier in the video when we talked about grading scales, and I specifically pointed out the missing parts section, 50-point deduction for that? There's no glass in this car. Right here on the first pick, we notice that no glass thing, and you notice that there's something kind of off about the paint overall as well. Now we start seeing the paint more clearly. We see a lot of missing paint. We see a lot of, I don't know what that is. It almost looks like the paint is bubbled or been scraped off some in some places. I'm not sure. It was a very rough paint job. And even if that came from the factory like that, we know now that that makes the car not mint. Base is actually not bad. Wheels look beat up. It even looks like the axles might be bent a little bit. I mean, there's just so much wrong with this car. I'm not sure how anyone could look at this car and think, well, this is mint. And judging from the angles that were chosen to take the pictures, it makes me wonder if this person really even knows anything about die-cast cars. And we're going to wrap this up with another bug, another VW Beetle. This one is in Spectra Flame Olive and has been graded as a C9 Plus. And here's a little explanation of why this seller thinks that it is deserving of such a high score. Well, right away, we can see one glaring flaw. I don't know what exactly happened up on the roof of this Beetle, but somehow, I don't know if a tree fell on this car while it was parked in the driveway or what happened, but you've got a big gash there up above the passenger side window. In the description, the seller tried to justify the grading, and he says minimal micro imperfections may be from the factory. And looking at this paint, we can see those minimal micro imperfections that he's talking about. And I have no doubt that those actually came from the factory. But knowing what we know, that doesn't matter. A flaw is a flaw. And this car is a perfect example. It's a shame that it happens, but it does happen, and it affects the grade of the car. The wheels on this car look pretty good. Here we see a top view, more paint chips. I mean, clear, obvious paint chips, that are probably not from the factory. There's another little angle shot. The base on this vehicle looks really nice, almost perfect, I'd say. There's even some gnarly stuff going on around this fender back here. Not to mention at some of the seams, it looks almost like the paint job wasn't complete at the factory. So this is an okay car, but it's clearly not a C9 and definitely not a C9 Plus. That was my last example to show you. Look, my point in showing these eBay examples was not to put down the sellers or the items they were trying to sell. It was just to show how, number one, a lot of people don't really know how to grade cars fairly. And number two, when you go online to buy, take the grading seriously and consider how much you're willing to pay for a car that may not deserve the grade it's being given. Anyways, that's all for today in this long video. I'm interested to know what you guys think of the grading systems in general, and if you think these sellers applied them the same way you would. I'd like to know. Drop a comment, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.